This session, we're going to learn about creating CSS with Dreamweaver. To start out, I've already got a root folder established. I'm going to go ahead and go to File, Save As, and I've already got an index in there from my last session. I'm going to go ahead and call this demo2.html. So in my Files panel, I've got a Dreamweaver site there already set up. If you don't know how to do the Files panel, my advice is to close this video and go watch my previous one about Dreamweaver Basics. It's very important that you get your root folder set up. So I'm all about CSS for this session, and we're going to start by talking about CSS for text. First thing I want to do is to create a couple of paragraphs of text. If you've got a favorite lorem ipsum generator, you can do that. I personally like to go out to lipsum.com. If you're not familiar with lipsum.com, it's spelled lipsum.com. And it's simply a lorem ipsum generator. It's kind of fun. It just gives you some dummy text that looks like real text. So I'll go to lipsum.com, I'll click generate, and I'm going to go ahead and copy in about 5 paragraphs. So I'll paste those in Dreamweaver, and they come in as actual paragraph tags. If I go to code view and look, they're simply p tags. There's no CSS on them or anything, but they are paragraphs. And what I really want to do is to create some CSS rules to just make these look different. Okay, I don't want them to look like they do now. So I'll save it, and the next step is to go into my CSS designer panel, and I want to create a CSS class for these that I can reuse over and over again. Now the CSS designer panel, it is a huge panel. It's actually broken down into 4 sections. Sources, which is where we're going to save our CSS classes and IDs to. In this case, I'll make an external CSS file. Add media, which is going to be media queries for responsive design. Not something I'm going to cover today, but this is all about responsive. Selectors will be all of the selector names of my CSS rules. And properties will include the properties and values of these. So it's sort of like a pyramid. The list, sources list where they're saved. Selectors gives me the list of all the rules, and properties gives me all the details of every rule, every selector. So we'll start by clicking on the sources, the little plus symbol, and I'll go to create a new CSS file. And it immediately prompts me to go ahead and save this file. So I'm going to call it style.css, and I'll hit OK. So now I've got a style.css file where it will save all of this too. Now it's also worth pointing out, in Dreamweaver up here on the upper left, we've now got our tab. Here's my demo2.html. Source code is going to show me the HTML, but style.css will show me all of the CSS code. The reason that this is a little bit strange is because now when I go to File, Save, it only saves the one file I'm working on. It doesn't save both the HTML and the CSS. So from now on, it would be handy to go to File, Save All. File, Save All. And no, there's not a default shortcut built into Dreamweaver for that. You can go through Edit and Preferences and create a keyboard shortcut. Actually, it's Edit and Keyboard Shortcuts at the bottom. You can make your own if you want, but normally from now on, I'll just go to File, Save All in lieu of anything else and saving them individually. The next thing I want to do is create my first selector, and I'm going to go ahead and drag this panel up here because I'm not going to be doing really anything with media today. So I'm going to spread these out a little bit so I can see my sources, and I won't need really anything more to sources besides style.css, my selectors, and my properties. So I'll hit the plus symbol to add a new selector, and I'll call this .para1. This is going to be my first paragraph style, .para1. And when I hit enter, my properties panel now populates. Now I can add my properties and values in here by simply typing them. If I don't know the ones that I want by heart, I'm going to have to probably pull these down from a menu. So if you click up here on the Show Set checkbox, it'll give you a big, long list of all of your basic CSS properties. These are kind of your basic CSS2 properties. There's a few CSS3 properties in here too. There's some gradients and shadows and things. It's not all inclusive because it doesn't do a lot of animation on this panel, but it does all of your static CSS2 and 3 properties and values. So if you know what properties you want, check that show set checkbox and go ahead and type what you need. Otherwise, uncheck that. And they're broken down into categories here. So the first one is layout, the next one is text, borders, backgrounds, and more. If we know we're going to do simple text things, I'm going to go ahead and click the T for text. And I just want to change a few things. It's worth pointing out here that if you don't want to change anything, don't. Because everything you change on here adds another line of CSS code. So if you don't feel like you need to change this stuff, don't. Just leave it blank. Just for reference, I'll change the color, the font, and the size. So for color, I'm going to make this text blue, kind of bright so we can see it. For font family, I will choose one of these families. I'll just go with Cambria. And for font size, I'm going to go with PX for pixel so I can type in the number I want. And I'm going to go 16 pixel just because I know that'll be large enough to see a difference. And that's all I really want to do with this first para 1 rule. So all I really have to do at this point is apply it. And to apply a CSS rule, again, file, save all, save early, save often, right? To apply the CSS rule, I'm simply going to go highlight a paragraph, come down here to the Properties Inspector on the bottom of the screen, and where it says Class, this will be populated with all the CSS classes that I've made. I've made only the one so far. So when I click on para 1, my document changes. And I can apply that to as many paragraphs as I want. I can do those individually or collectively if I highlight more than one. So I'm going to make a couple of different paragraph styles here. We'll make one of these blue and one of these red just for reference here. So I'll do it again. And to make my second rule, it's the same basic process. I'll make sure style.css is highlighted, so it's going to go in that style.css file. I'll come down to selectors, and I'll hit the new button, and I'll say .para2 for paragraph 2. I'll click on the type. I'll give it a color of red. I'll give this a font of, Baskerville. That'll look a bit different. And then for font size, and you see all the choices here. There's so many choices. Font size, I'll make this one really fairly large. I'll go up to 22 pixels, and that should be considerably larger than the 16 we did earlier. I'm not going to go through every one of these properties and values, but it's up to you to go through here and see exactly what's offered, and you know, I can go through each one of these, but until you really start to play, you really won't learn this. So go out and play with this. Don't be afraid to break anything, and just get familiar with the properties and values that are listed here, and the order that they're in. Just, you know, you'll get faster at it the more you know. After I've changed my font color and size and something else, I can simply go highlight a paragraph, choose class, para2, and it's done. And I can do that to any paragraph I choose. So normally I wouldn't have two paragraphs together that look this drastically different. This is pretty ugly, but it gets the point across that to create a CSS rule for a paragraph, it's actually pretty simple. So I hope that helps out with learning CSS for text. And if you have questions about divs, check out my next session coming soon, where we'll be able to create div tags with CSS. Thanks.